Hold on just a second before you continue scrolling past. If you or anybody you care about relies on Social Security, SSI, or SSDI, what I am going to reveal in the coming few minutes could genuinely affect your financial reality in 2026. Congress has just approved something significant, and the mainstream press hardly paid it any notice. They glossed over the specifics that matter most to the over 70 million Americans who depend on these programs each and every month to pay expenses, purchase groceries, and maintain their households. We are discussing actual changes, actual dollars, and actual cutoff dates that you absolutely must not overlook. Whether you are retired and collecting Social Security, coping with a disability and receiving SSDI, a lower income senior depending on SSI, or somebody who has been anticipating financial assistance like a stimulus disbursement, this new legislation touches every part of it. And if you do not completely grasp what has shifted, what you currently qualify for, and what measures you must pursue, there is a genuine possibility that funds intended for you may never arrive in your possession. This is not guesswork. This is not sensationalism. This is formal legislation enacted by Congress that directly influences your benefits, your disbursements, and your financial well-being. Beginning right now in 2026, I have laid out everything in straightforward, accessible language. No legal jargon, no confusing bureaucratic terminology, just the critical information you require, described like a trusted person would. We will walk through precisely what has shifted, who is eligible, how much money is at stake, and what actions you must complete before deadlines pass. If you value someone finally being transparent with seniors regarding their finances, press that like button now and let us work through this side by side. Now that you recognize how significant this is, let me walk you through it one stage at a time, section by section, because you are owed the full picture, not merely surface-level coverage. Let us start with the most pressing question on your mind. What precisely did Congress authorize, and why does it carry such weight for seniors, disabled Americans, and the millions who have been counting on government assistance in 2026? The response has multiple dimensions, and it is crucial that you comprehend each one thoroughly because every component directly influences your monthly earnings, your buying capacity, and your ability to organize your financial future with assurance. The legislation that was enacted represents one of the most substantial modifications to the Social Security framework and associated federal benefits in over 10 years. This is not about minor tweaks buried in an enormous bill that nobody examines. These are significant structural reforms. Reforms to how benefits are computed, reforms to eligibility for particular payments, reforms to how cost of living raises are established, reforms to how SSI beneficiaries are handled under the statute, and yes, even measures connected directly to stimulus-type disbursements directed specifically at lower-income seniors and disabled people who were excluded from previous relief initiatives. Before we get into the precise figures and specifics, it is vital to recognize why this occurred and why at this moment. For numerous years, champions for seniors and individuals with disabilities have been voicing worries that Social Security payments have not matched the actual cost of living for those who depend on them the most. The standard cost of living adjustment, referred to as COLA, is derived from an inflation metric that many analysts argue does not capture how seniors truly spend their money. Older Americans allocate a bigger share of their earnings toward healthcare, prescription medications, housing, and food. The expenses in these categories have risen much more rapidly than the overall inflation figures utilized for COLA computations. At the same time, SSI, which assists the lowest-earning seniors and disabled people, has been functioning under antiquated benefit thresholds and regulations, some of which have not been appropriately revised since the 1970s. Asset caps, earnings rules, and even sanctions connected to marriage have stayed the same. While living expenses have climbed dramatically, many SSI beneficiaries have been getting monthly disbursements that are insufficient to cover even fundamental shelter, much less food, transit, and health services. That circumstance was unsustainable, and Congress at last stepped in. So, what precisely has been altered? Let me outline the essential components individually, beginning with Social Security retirement payments, then SSDI, followed by SSI, and lastly, stimulus disbursements, since each category is impacted differently and you deserve information that pertains specifically to you. For Social Security retirement beneficiaries, meaning those who contributed to the system throughout their careers and are now drawing payments, the most significant modification involves how COLA is determined. Starting in 2026, adjustments are linked to an alternative inflation measure crafted specifically for individuals aged 62 and above. This measure, identified as the CPIE or Consumer Price Index for the elderly, gives greater weight to healthcare and housing expenses, which are sectors where seniors allocate the most. The outcome is that COLA raises in 2026 are larger than they would have been under the former methodology. And for numerous beneficiaries, particularly long-standing recipients who have watched their buying power erode over time, the distinction is substantial. We are discussing additional funds in your monthly deposit that can accumulate over a year and visibly enhance your standard of living. The legislation also tackles long-standing provisions known as the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. These provisions have diminished Social Security payments for millions of individuals who served in certain public sector roles or positions that did not withhold Social Security contributions. These regulations have been disputed for decades. Many employees, including educators, firefighters, law enforcement officers, and other public servants, devoted years contributing to their communities only to discover their Social Security payments reduced afterward. The new legislation alters or eliminates these reductions in certain circumstances, meaning numerous beneficiaries will notice a boost in their monthly disbursements. For some, the boost could be considerable. If you believe this might pertain to you or someone you are close to, listen carefully because you could be owed supplementary funds and may need to act in order to collect them. Now, let us address SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance. This program delivers payments to workers who become disabled prior to reaching retirement age and who have contributed sufficiently into the system to be eligible. The modifications here center primarily on two aspects: how disability is characterized and how much beneficiaries can make without forfeiting payments. Concerning disability characterizations, the new legislation mandates the Social Security Administration to update how applications are assessed, particularly for conditions that have traditionally been disregarded. This encompasses certain mental health conditions, chronic pain disorders, autoimmune illnesses, and other challenges that may not always be straightforwardly documented but still profoundly affect everyday functioning. If you were rejected for SSDI previously because your condition did not satisfy the former standards, you may now have a stronger opportunity if you submit a fresh application. On the income side, the legislation increases the ceiling for what qualifies as substantial gainful activity. This means people collecting SSDI can generate more earnings without instantly jeopardizing their payments. This is particularly crucial for individuals who wish to attempt returning to employment, but have been hesitant to do so because making even a modest sum could threaten their eligibility. The elevated threshold offers greater latitude and certainty, allowing disabled people to explore their capacity to work while still preserving their financial safety net. Now let us transition to SSI, Supplemental Security Income. This section contains some of the most critical and long-awaited reforms in the entire legislation. SSI assists seniors age 65 or above as well as blind or disabled people with extremely restricted earnings and resources. Unlike Social Security, SSI does not demand an employment history. It is purely needs-based and serves some of the most at-risk populations. The resource caps for SSI have stayed at $2,000 for single individuals and $3,000 for married couples since 1989. Consider that for an instant. Since that year, those caps have not risen whatsoever while living expenses have soared dramatically. This has compelled beneficiaries to stay trapped in poverty, unable to set aside money or establish any financial foundation without gambling on losing their payments. That framework was profoundly broken. Under the new legislation, resource caps are being substantially raised and will now adjust alongside inflation over time. This means beneficiaries can at last save modest sums, create emergency reserves, and enjoy some financial flexibility without sacrificing eligibility. There are also revisions to how earnings are tallied, including part-time wages, family assistance, and in-kind contributions like food or shelter support. Previously, aid from relatives could diminish SSI disbursements, but the revised regulations relax those limitations, making it simpler for families to assist loved ones without reducing payments as drastically. Now let us discuss stimulus disbursements, which many of you have been eager to learn about. Yes, the new legislation incorporates direct payments comparable to stimulus checks aimed specifically at Social Security, SSI, and SSDI beneficiaries beneath particular earnings thresholds. These are not blanket payments like those distributed during COVID. Rather, they are concentrated on seniors and disabled people who have been most burdened by escalating expenses and inadequate benefit adjustments. Disbursement amounts fluctuate depending on earnings, benefit category, and household composition. Those with the smallest incomes, particularly SSI beneficiaries, are anticipated to receive the greatest payments. Social Security and SSDI recipients with reduced incomes also meet the criteria, though sums differ. Here is something extremely critical. Most disbursements will be distributed automatically based on current Social Security files. You will not need to submit another application. However, if your contact information, banking details, or tax filings are not current, you could encounter delays or lose your disbursement altogether. It is vital to confirm your records as quickly as possible. I also want to caution you regarding fraud. Whenever there are benefit modifications or disbursements, con artists attempt to exploit the situation. They may transmit deceptive texts, emails, or phone calls impersonating authorities. Remember, the Social Security Administration will never request private information or payments over the telephone. Always utilize official platforms to review your benefits. Finally, recognize that while this legislation is not flawless, it is a move in the right direction. It delivers more funds, more adaptability, and stronger safeguards for millions of Americans. Now is the moment to remain educated, take initiative, and ensure you collect every benefit you are owed.